easier in that one. Again, your ethmoid syphenoid occipital bone, but you also need to know the foramen magnum, foramen ovale, hypoglossal fossa, and the optic foramen, as well as the curviform plate and the olfactory foramina. Okay, so everything in that slide you are responsible for. On the top of 404.
Pretty much all the slides.
All the slides, you're responsible for whatever's in the slides. I'll put it that way. For identification. Okay. On your vertebrae, you have to know how many cervical, how many thoracic, how many lumbar, breakfast, lunch, dinner, eat breakfast at 7, lunch at noon, dinner at 5. Okay, so hopefully that'll help. The sacral is 1, the coccyx is 1, but they're fused. One fused bone. Okay. Also need to know, I think if he showed you guys, the difference between convex and concave. So if you're looking at the bottom of 405, that bottom slide, the cervical is going to be what? Convex. The lumbar, or excuse me, thoracic is going to be concave, convex, concave. Okay.
Wait, what?
So the thoracic, or excuse me, the cervical are convex. The thoracic are concave. Because they stick out towards the front of the body, they're convex. Okay, and because they go away towards the back of the body, posterior, the thoracic are concave. The lumbar kind of lean forward, they go to the anterior portion of the body, they're convex, and then the sacral coccyx are concave. Okay, so be able to label C1 through 7, T1 through 12, L1 through 5. On the vertebral column, on the next page, you're going to have to be able to label the parts. Being the vertebral discs, the body, the pedicle, the transverse processes, the laminae, the spinous process, and the vertebral foramen. Okay, everything that's in bold letters, bold words, you'll have to be able to label on the pictures.
So basically every single thing that's on the super.
No, the superior articular faucet and the, yeah, that one.
Okay.
Yes, that's the only one.
That's the only one. It's not really hard because they all have some form or another of those different parts. So it's just identifying them on the different vertebrae. Okay. So the pedicle is always going to connect the body to the transverse process. The lamina is always going to connect the transverse process to the spinous process. Okay. The hole in the middle that the spinal cord goes down is always going to be the transverse or the vertebral foramen. Okay. The bodies are all going to be there except for on C1. And the spinous process is obviously going to stick out. So for the most part, they all look more or less the same. They're just different sizes. They have all those same similar parts. They're just different sizes. Okay, except for C1 and some of the cervical. Wow, sorry about that. I couldn't get that word out. It was hard to see, but I couldn't get it out. Cervical. Their transverse foramen, you can actually label. Okay, whereas when you get to the lower, they don't have the transverse foramen. They have an intervertebral foramen. An intervertebral foramen is what happens when you stick two vertebral discs together, or two vertebrae together. So you have the body, and then you have the pedicle, transverse process, and your spinous process. When you stick one of these together, it's most likely the lumbar. This hole that this makes here That's your intervertebral foramen. That's going to be pretty much down the spine. In your cervical, it actually has the body, and it has a little area that comes out here. These are your transverse foramen. Okay, so that's about the only difference between your cervical, thoracic, and your lumbar. Your thoracic and your lumbar is not going to have these transverse, they're going to have it intervertebral. And what are those for? What's a foramen for? Nerves. So your nerves can come out off of the spinal cord and go to the different parts of the body. What is C1 called? The atlas. Why? Atlas holds up the world. What does the C1 do?
Holds up your head.
Holds up your head. Okay. You can see on the picture on 407 that it has two articulating faucets, those blue little areas. There's two knobs on either side of the foramen magnum, okay, in the occipital bone, that rest right on the top of that, C1. That's the only thing that keeps your head on your cervical. Well, I shouldn't say the only thing. The spinal cord and all the ligaments that hold it, but that's the only connection, bone to bone, from your head to your spine, is those two superior articulating faucets. All the rest of your head is just free floating. And it's kind of amazing. What does the C1 provide you to be able to do with your head? Nod up and down. What does the C2 allow you to do? No. C1 yes, C2 no. Okay. What does the C2 have that the C1 doesn't?
A dens.
The dens. If you turn the page to 408, on the bottom right-hand corner of that slide, you can really see the dens and how it interacts with the C1. Okay, so that den sticks up there, and the C1 rotates around it, which allows your skull or your head to say no. Okay.
So the dent sticks up through the forearm?
Sticks up through C1. C1 sits down on top of the dens, so it's like a pivot point for it. There's a little ligament that actually goes in front of the dens that doesn't allow the C1 to move one way or the other. Okay. If you're in an accident and you pop that C1 off the dens, it's what they call internal decapitation.
Saw that on a show. Kick that car.
Yeah.
Does that kill it?
It depends how far it goes. If it actually pinches off the spinal cord and damages the C3, 4, 5, the phrenic nerve, which goes to the diaphragm, you'll stop breathing, you'll suffocate to death.
This kid lived, they couldn't get trach tube down her, but.
Yeah, they couldn't get because what happens to all your neck bones if your
He
goes
just got
forward?
stretched essentially, I think they
Yeah.
were able to get it down.
Yeah. Is that the one that was boy that got hit by a car? He was riding his bike. I think I saw that one. Yeah, internal decapitation is what it's called. It's actually really, if it depends, if you break that cord right there, then you would die because all your nerves come off of all that area. The only thing would be is your C1, C2. You have a couple of nerves that go up to the brain. That's it. All your breathing, your heartbeat, your blood flow, all that would be completely cut off if you pinch that nerve up there at C1, C2 area. So, but yeah, be able to label these different parts. Difference between the thoracic. You can see the thoracic doesn't have as big a body. The lumbar has a much bigger body because it holds more or less weight than the thoracic.
More.
More. So the body's going to be bigger to support the weight of the spine compressing down on it.
You're saying label all the pictures on 408 and 409?
Well, they might have that picture. They could have a lumbar picture, they could have a thoracic picture, they could have a cervical picture, and you would have to label the pedicle, the lamina, the transverse process, the spinous process, the body, the vertebral foramen, Okay, so all these parts are exactly the same in all three of them. They're just a little bit different depending on where you are on the spine. But yeah, you're gonna have to be able to label all of the different parts. Okay?
There's a lot of labeling on this test.
Yeah, there's a lot of pictures on this test.
The transverse form is only in the cervical.
The cervical, the near the top, yeah. Because those are the ones that are gonna go out this way and go up to the brain, up to the head, and then as you start here, then they're gonna go out to the side. Once they get down into your neck area, then they're start branching out, and they don't need that foramen.
Going in the cervical threshold.
Yeah. Exactly. Your sacral and your coxal, just know the difference between lumbarization and sacralization. Again, a coccyx is 3 or 4 fused. The sacrum is 5 fused. What lumbarization is normally you do not have a joint between S1 and S2. If you have a joint between S1 and S2, it's called lumbarization. You normally have a joint between L5 and S1. If it's fused, it's then called sacralization. That one happens 10% of the people, the other one happens 14% of the people. The rest of the 76% has no fused S5 or L5, S1, or fused S1, S2. Okay, they're just normal like they should be. Okay. Your thoracic cavity is protected by your ribs. Know what true ribs, false ribs, and floating ribs are, what numbers they are, where they connect in the front as well as in the back. And then you have to know the bones in your upper skeletal extremities, including what the glenoid fossa is on the top of the first paragraph there. The glenoid fossa is where the humerus sticks in. You need to know the pelvic girdle, the 3 different bones, and the acetabulum, which is the femur, where the femur fits in.
The glenoid fossa is for the...
Glenoid fossa for the humerus, the arm.
What is it again?
The glenoid fossa.
Yeah.
If you see the scapula, and the clavicle, and then the humerus where they all meet, you see that yellow, or excuse me, the blue hyaline cartilage. Where that blue hyaline cartilage attaches to the scapula and the clavicle, it's called the glenoid fossa. So you got your clavicle, you got your scapula, okay, and where the humerus comes in and connects, this area right here is called the glenoid fossa. And you can't see it in my picture, but it's an actual small depression that allows for the socket to come in and make a ball.
The humerus actually touches kind of the socket, not touch underneath.
No, it's a side connection, yeah. Same thing with the femur, it's a side connection. It's not enough connection. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to move all the way around. So know your upper, know your pelvis, the acetabulum, and also your sacroiliac joint. Your sacroiliac joint is where the sacrum connects to the ilium. In other words, if you look at the top picture, it's those 2 little curvatures. So you got the pelvis, and then right here and right here where the sacrum is, this is your sacroiliac joint.
The sides?
Yeah.
Little,
Those
yeah,
two little lines makes the sacrum look like a heart. That's your sacroiliac joint. Okay. And then acetabulum is where the leg comes in and makes the ball and socket. You can see that on